So here are the solutions to the factoring mixed review sheet that you guys got on Wednesday. So let's take a look at number one. What we could really just do here is factor out a GCF. This isn't a special type. So I could factor out a 5, an X, and a Y. And then what would be left over would be a 2, because 5 times 2 will give us 10. I need one more X, but I don't need any more Y. So 5xy times 2x will give me this 10x squared Y. Minus 5 times 3 will give me 15. I factored out an x, so I don't need any more. I factored out one y, so I do need one more. And then that's it. That's all we could do for number 1. For number 2, 25 is a perfect square. M is raised to an even power, so this is a difference of squares. I just make 2 sets of parentheses, take the square root of each term, so we'll get a 5. Now the square root of m to the 8th will be half of that exponent, so m to the 4th. So then I have a 5 and an m to the 4th. And then I just put 1 plus sign, 1 minus sign. Now for the 5 minus m to the 4th, I would try to factor that again, but 5 is not a perfect square, so I can't. For number 3, this looks close to being perhaps a difference of 2 cubes. However, 7 and 56 aren't perfect cubes, but there is a GCF of 7. So once I factor that out, now I have x cubed minus 8, and that is a difference of cubes. Still bring down the 7, binomial, trinomial, cube root of each one, so an x and a 2, same sign. What's going to go first here is an x squared, x times x, opposite sign, so a plus. Then in the middle, I multiply x times 2, so 2x. Last sign is always positive. Next, I multiply 2 times 2, which is a 4. All right, for number 4, there is no GCF. It's in order. No leading coefficient other than 1, so this is nice. I'm just going to factor y squared into y and y. Factors of 21 are 7 and 3, and 21 and 1. The 7 and 3 will help me get to the 4. Signs need to be different, and I need to get a positive 4, so I need a plus 7 and a minus 3. All right, now with number 5, we have to be careful. We have to switch around the minus 11n. That has to go in the middle, and then the 5 has to go last. So we have 2n to the 5th minus 11n plus 5. Now I can make my 2 sets of parentheses because there's no GCF. 2n, sorry, that shouldn't be to the 5th. That should be squared, 2n squared. That looks better. All right, so to factor 2n squared is 2n and n. Now 5, I only have a choice of 5 then 1 or 1 then 5. So let's try it. If I did 5 then 1, on the outside I would get a 2n, and then on the inside I get a 5n. That's definitely not going to get me to 11, so I'll just switch those around. So I'll have a 1 then a 5. Now on the outside I'm going to get a 10n. On the inside I'm going to get a 1n. Now this will work if my signs are the same, and they are. They're going to be the same. They're both going to be negative. So now on the outside I'm going to get, just to check this whole thing, 2n times 2n will give me 2n squared. On the outside I'm going to get a minus 10n. On the inside I'm going to get a minus 1n. And then last I'm going to get a plus 5. So this will become a 2n squared. There's my minus 11n in the middle, plus 5. So this is just a way to check, but this is our answer. All right, for number 6, there is no GCF. This is the order we want it to be in. So I am going to make 2 sets of parentheses. Now 28 has some rather large numbers, some factors, and 12 is a large number itself and has some more factors. So let's take our time going through this. I'm just going to start with some of the smaller factors. So for 28a squared, I'm going to try just a 7a and a 4a. And then for the 12, let's try maybe a 3b, and because I need to have a b here, and a 4b. Now my signs have to be different, so let's just check to see what we have. So on the outside, I've got a 28ab. On the inside, I have a 12ab. That's not going to get me to 5, so I want to erase that. Let's try something else. I'm just going to try switching that around. So let's try the 4b and a 3b this way. So let's see what we get now. On the outside, I'm going to have a 21ab. On the inside, I'm going to have a 16ab. Now, since my signs are different, I'm going to subtract, and 21 minus 16 will give me a 5 in the middle. It's a positive 5, so that means the 21 needs to be positive, so that means I need to put the plus sign here. And then to get a negative 16ab, I need to have a minus sign here. So 7a minus 4b in one set of parentheses, 4a plus 3b in the other set. Right, 7 has 4 terms. This is a factor by grouping problem. I'm going to try leaving everything where it is. Factor out a GCF from the first 2 terms and then from the next 2 terms. So what can I factor out from the first 2? I could factor out an x. What should be left? An x plus 2. If my third term is positive, I'm going to factor out a positive y from these two. And then I should also have an x plus 2 when I'm done, and I do if I factor out a y. So now I make two sets of parentheses. X plus 2 is going to go in one of them. The x plus y is going to go in the other. Now for number 8, I have to switch this around. I want my x squared to go first, my minus 8x in the middle, and then plus 15. Now I can make two sets of parentheses. We'll do x and x. What's going to factor to 15? We're going to be 5 and 3 can help us get to an 8. Our signs have to be the same to get a positive 15, and then they're both negative. Now for number 9, there is a GCF. This is the order we want this to be in. So I'm going to factor out a 4. 4 can go into all three numbers. I'm going to have an x squared minus a 9x. Now, if we have to do long division off to the side, that's fine, just to show you and refresh your memory on this. I have 144 divided by 4. I know 4 can't go into 1, but 4 can go into 14 3 times. So 3 times 4 is 12. I put that back underneath the 14 and subtract. 14 minus 12 is 2. Bring down the 4. 4 goes into 24 6 times, so I get a minus 36. So I'm still going to bring down the 4. Now I'm going to factor the x squared minus 9x minus 36. Factors into x and x. Factors of 36 that can help me get to a 9 are going to be 12 and 3. But I need them to be different. To get a negative 9, I'm going to have a minus 12 and a positive 3. All right, now for number 10, again, we have factor by grouping here. We could try to leave it in the order it's in, so let's give this a try. If I factor out a 2 from the first two terms, I'm going to have a 5 plus t. Now, since my third term is negative, I want to factor out a negative with the GCF, and I can factor out an s. And if I did that, I'll still have a 5, and then if I'm factoring out a negative, I'll get a plus t over here as well. So that worked. Now I make two sets of parentheses. 5 plus t goes in one of them. 2 minus s goes in the other. Number 11 is actually a difference of squares. There's no GCF here. I'm going to make two sets of parentheses and simply take the square root of each term. So the first one is going to give me a 4y. Square root of 49z squared will be a 7z. So I want a 4y, 7z in the other one, and just 1 plus, 1 minus. Or it could go plus, then minus. First a plus and then a minus. Doesn't matter, as long as it looks like this. All right, for number 12, again, nothing to factor out. Now, even though we do have a y to the fourth, that's okay. As long as the middle exponent is half of it, this can work. So I want to factor y to the fourth and y squared. That's how we're going to get the y squared in the middle. Factors of 16, because our leading coefficient is 1, factors of 16 that's going to help me get to a 6 would be 8 and 2. 8 times 2 is 16, and if I subtracted an 8 from a 2 or 2 from an 8, I can get a positive or negative 6. I need the 6 to be negative, so the 8's negative, and then the 2 is going to be positive. Now, I just can't go any further here. Y squared minus 8 is not a difference of squares, so that's it for this problem. All right, for 13, this is another example of a sum of two cubes. There's no GCF, so I make a binomial, then a trinomial. Cube root of 125a cubed will give me a 5a. Cube root of 27b cubed is 3b. What's going to go first in the trinomial? 5a times 5a is 25a squared. We can fill in our sign, so it's going to be the same sign here, positive. Our next sign is going to be opposite. What's going to go in the middle? 5a times 3b, so a 15ab. Last sign is always positive. What's going to go last is 3b times 3b, so a 9b squared. All right, now 14, this is another factor by grouping. Again, I'm just going to try to leave it in this form, not rearrange anything. What can I factor out of the first two? Would be an x squared. What's going to be left? An x plus 1. Now the next two, even though these don't match just yet, but if I factored out a negative, maybe an x plus 1 will be left. So the opposite, negative here times an x will give me a negative x, and then a negative times a positive 1 will give me the negative 1. So this matches. It's kind of like the problem off of the other worksheet. I could put a 1 out there. So now I can make my two sets of parentheses. X plus 1 is going to go in one of them, and then x squared minus 1 is going to go in the other. Again, that's what's out in front. Now, we actually could look at that x squared minus 1 and factor a little further. So we're going to get an x plus 1 brought down from the beginning. And then this is a difference of squares, so I'm actually going to get an x plus 1 and then an x minus 1. All right, a few more left here. All right, for number 15, again, there's no GCF. But what's going to help here is if I were to write out factors of 6 and factors of 20 to help me. So I do 2 and 3, 6 and 1. Over here I do 4, 5, 10 and 2, and then 20 and 1. So I'm just going to start with the first set of numbers here. I'm going to try 6x squared is 2x and 3x. Then I want to try a 4y and a 5y. And let's just check. On the outside, if I multiply 2x times 5y, that's 10xy. On the inside, if I multiply 4y by 3x, that's 12xy. No combination of adding or subtracting will get me to a 7, so that's no good. So I'm just going to try switching these two around. And we just keep going until we find something that works. I'm going to try to put a 5y here rather, and a 4y over here. So now if I multiply the outside, I'm going to get an 8xy. Multiply the inside, I'm going to get a 15xy. Now because my signs have to be different to get a minus 20y squared, I'd have to subtract, and 15 minus 8 will give me that positive 7, so the 15 has to be positive, the 8 has to be negative, so I'm going to put a plus in front of the 5y, that'll give me a positive 15xy, and a minus over there, that'll give me on the outside a negative 8xy. All right, for 16, this doesn't look like anything special yet, but there is a GCF of 3, so if I factor that out, I'm going to be left with an x squared minus 4. Now that x squared minus 4 is something special, I could factor that into, it's a difference of squares, into an x plus 2 and an x minus 2. But notice I still need to keep that 3. All right, 17, if we try this, it's in order, there's no GCF, so I would just factor the 5x squared into 5x and x. And then if I tried, my signs have to be the same, they both have to be negative. And if I tried 3 and 3 here, on the outside I'm going to get a negative 15x minus a 3x, not giving me a negative 6x, so that doesn't work. If I switch the 3's around, that's not going to change anything. If I tried 5x minus something and then an x minus something, I could try a 9 then 1, or I could try a minus 9 and then a 1. On the outside here, I'm at a negative 45x and a negative 1x. That's not going to give me a negative 6x, so that doesn't work. Out here, I'm going to have a negative 5x. On the inside, I'll have a minus 9x. That, again, doesn't give me a negative 6x. We tried everything. Nothing works. So this is a case where it cannot be factored. We say it's prime. And then for 18, again, these are some rather large numbers, but there's no GCF. So we're just going to try. Now, even though they're large, they don't have too many factors. So I'm going to try factoring 25m squared into 5m and 5m. And then 49, I'm just going to try maybe the 7s. Now what's nice is everything's positive, or my signs are the same, they're both positive. So let's see if this works. On the outside, I'm going to get a 35m. On the inside, I'm going to get a 35m. Adding those two together will give me a 70m. So this works. On the outside here, or the first rather, I'm going to get a 25m squared. Then I'll get a 35m to get me my 70m, and then a positive 49 at the end. All right, so again, hopefully watching this video helped as well. If not, or if you still have certain questions on problems, please email me and attend the Zoom meeting on Tuesday. Take care, guys.